Lakers star Russell Westbrook calls out LeBron James and Anthony Davis, claiming that they lied during the 2021-22 NBA season. To say Russell Westbrook's exit interview on Monday was controversial would be an understatement. Russ had more than a few things to say about his forgettable first season with the Los Angeles Lakers, and surely this will be a talking point for the media in the coming days. One of the most intriguing aspects of Westbrook's interview, however, centered around superstar teammates LeBron James and Anthony Davis. When asked by a reporter to share his thoughts on LeBron and AD, saying multiple times this season that they let Russ be himself, Westbrook called out the statement as a blatant lie. Westbrook stated, "Well, that wasn't true. Let's be honest," Westbrook said. The report LeBron and AD were clear on, "Let Russ be Russ." Russell Westbrook then alluded to again, "Well, that wasn't true. Let's be honest. Did you ever feel like yourself this season?" And Westbrook vehemently said, "No, I never felt like Russell Westbrook." Westbrook is disputing the notion that LeBron and Anthony Davis gave him leeway to play his game. Apparently, Russ believes that this was never the case in the first place and that he was never given the opportunity to be himself throughout the season. That wasn't all for Westbrook. The former league MVP also decided to call out the Lakers for clipping his wings, so to speak. Westbrook stated, "When I first got there, I just felt that I was never given a fair chance to be who I needed to be to better this team's." When asked if there were specific points in the season where he felt like himself, Russ noted that this came far and few in between. He said, "It was very rare. There were times in spurts, but I was just trying to find my way, honestly." Russ isn't holding back. He basically is pinning a lot of the blame on his teammates for his poor play this season. He didn't exactly lambaste LeBron and Anthony Davis, but he did imply that they were lying throughout the season whenever they said they were giving Russ the space he needed to be Russ. It is interesting to note that it was because of LeBron and AD's persuasion that the Lakers signed Westbrook in the first place. Reports suggest that prior to trading for Russ, the Lakers, or at least team general manager Rob Pelinka, were set on bringing Buddy Hield to Hollywood. This was before LeBron and Anthony Davis met with Westbrook to discuss his potential role with the 2020 champions. Clearly, this did not work out as any of them expected it to. It will be interesting to see how LeBron and Anthony Davis respond to Westbrook's comments, given how Russ pretty much threw them under the bus here. Surely, these damning statements will have some sort of impact on Westbrook's relationship with the teammates both on and off the court. More importantly, though, what type of effect will this have, if any, on Russ's future with the Lakers? Did he just burn a bridge here, or does he find a way to get back from this one? Does Westbrook even want to stay in Los Angeles? If they wanted to, can the Lakers even find a way to trade Russ and the $47.1 million he's guaranteed next season? Is a contract buyout a legitimate option here? Russell Westbrook's exit interview has clearly left us with more questions than answers. It's going to be a very interesting summer ahead for the Lakers and the former league MVP. Brace yourself, folks, and Laker Nation. This could get really ugly really fast. And there you guys have it right there, man. Talking about the Los Angeles Lakers, Russell Westbrook. Obviously, this was a year unlike any other. We talked about it on our podcast a few weeks ago. We talked about how prior to the season starting, the two teams favored to get to the chip were the Lakers and the Brooklyn Nets. And again, I don't think anyone could have predicted this type of crumbling within the Laker organization, especially after coming off a championship in 2020. And when we talk about Russell Westbrook specifically, I mean, this year, obviously it was a down year statistically, 18.5 points per game on 7.4 rebounds and 7.1 assists. And, one might say at first glance that, those numbers are not necessarily, they really aren't that bad. But, with regards to impact. And when you look at Russell Westbrook's turnovers, his turnovers were significantly down. I mean, if you look at, over like the last 6 or 7 years, he's averaged over 4 turnovers a game. He was able to get that down this year to 3.8 turnovers. But, as we saw Russell Westbrook kind of reel things in, not be as aggressive, not attack as much. Obviously, the turnover numbers went down, but then the play on the floor suffered as well, as he kind of struggled to settle into this new role that was given to him. And as Westbrook alluded to, he came to this Laker organization with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, indicating that he can be Russ. And if that is true, obviously there are two sides to this coin. We would love to hear from Anthony Davis and LeBron James on this, right? So we could have both sides of the spectrum. But again, according to Russ, he was told he could be Russ. And once he got here, everything changed. And we've seen some of the posts alluding to some of the players really throwing jabs at Frank Vogel, saying that we have more starting lineups than wins. I mean, there's so many things coming from the players going at coaches going at players going at each other, players also throwing shots at the organization, even players throwing shots at the media. But irregardless of all of those components, this Lakers season was a disaster, and many are calling this one of the biggest disappointments in NBA history for a team loaded up with this much talent. And I believe that that's a fair assessment, even if that sentiment generally comes from, the LeBron haters, right? Or the Laker haters. Even if that sentiment comes from them, it is true to a certain degree, because I think it's very rare in NBA history where you have a team that's preseason picked to get to the NBA Finals, and then that same team finds themselves not even making the playoffs. And you're talking about not making the playoffs when there's a play-in. So it's not the 1 through 8. You have an opportunity to make the playoffs even if you're a 10 seed. And the Lakers failed to even do that, to finish 10th in the West. And again, that's one of the bigger disappointments. So again, I want you guys to let me know what do you think about this, because we talked about how I believe that the Lakers were much more competitive when Russ was actually being more aggressive. Yes, there may have been a few more turnovers, but they were much more competitive, and it looked like they were finding some type of consistency and rhythm when he was attacking. But then when he has those high turnover games, notwithstanding turnovers, all the media would clamor to certain statistics just to point the ire at Russell Westbrook. And I think maybe the coaching staff in LA kind of fell into that media pushback, or that fan pushback, and those sentiments. And then we heard it throughout the year. People labeling Russell Westbrook Russell Westbrook. And when we just saw shots coming, it seemed like a lot of people just kind of used Russell Westbrook as the low-hanging fruit. When, again, I believe that there were a large number of issues outside of Russell Westbrook that could be pointed at as to the culprit for why this team did not succeed. But again, I want you guys to let me know in the comments what you think about this Laker team. Is it going to get messy before things get better? Will LeBron James and Anthony Davis respond? And now that Frank Vogel is fired, what coach can they bring in to fix this? These are all things that need to be discussed. I personally believe they need to bring in a coach, because the Lakers absolutely have no leverage whatsoever right now. Unlike with Frank Vogel, when they brought Vogel in, they literally told him who his assistants were going to be, and he had little to no say on this. This is why Tyronn Lue and other coaches turned down the Laker job, because they were not going to have control over who they could bring in. The next coach coming in to coach LA now has the advantage, because they're going to want to bring in their staff, their guys, their personnel to right this ship. And will this LA organization relent and bring in a veteran coach? We've heard names like Nick Nurse. We've heard names like Doc Rivers. These are supposed to be the guys, right? If you bring in a high-profile name like that, these are veteran coaches that are going to want to bring in their staff. You're not going to be able to get these guys to just coach under whatever staff you assign them to. So number of things. The Lakers say that they're going to have a coach in place before the draft. That would be wise, right? Because again, they don't have much leeway to work with in the draft. They don't have many assets. So with the few draft assets they have, they must absolutely hit home runs. They're going to have to make great moves in the offseason to better this roster. We've already heard noise that the Indiana Pacers are very, very much so interested in Russell Westbrook's expiring contract at $47.1 million because they want to get Brogdon and a couple of those other players. They want to get those deals off their books. So will we see a team like the Pacers bring in some guys? Like, I feel like a Brogdon and some of those Pacer players might be a better fit with this particular Laker unit. Will the Lakers this time pull the trigger on a deal that will at least breathe a little bit of life back into Laker Nation and to this Laker organization? But again, you guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this video. What do you think about the Lakers? What's next? How should they handle the draft? And also, primarily, let me know in the comments, who do you think they should hire to fix this right here? I think Juwan Howard from Michigan, a guy that coaches with an iron fist, would be best for this team. Right? I think Frank Vogel allowed LeBron and AD and some of the vets on that team to walk over him a bit too much, maybe have too much of a say-so on what goes on and off the court. I think Juwan Howard, we all know how he coaches, right? We know what he demands of his players. And we know one thing: when he coaches, he's going to be the authoritarian in there. It's not going to be LeBron. It's not going to be AD. Everything's going to go through him. Right, he's going to be the last line in that. And that's really what you want out of a coach. But again, you guys, let me know your thoughts on this. Who do you think is going to be the next coach of the Lakers? And how do you think they rectify this situation? Especially if the only team I believe that can make a trade with them, which is the Pacers. If the Pacers don't pull a trade, what do they do with this team? But it's FYF Sports, man. Been another great podcast episode. We will be back with more sports and news. Remember, the videos are going to be dropping daily now. The live streams are going to be coming much more frequency now that our schedules have opened back up. So make sure you guys smash the notification bell, hit the like button, and when you hit that notification bell, hit all so you get all the notifications. And if that notification bell isn't working for some reason, make sure you guys follow us on Instagram and Twitter, because we drop notifications when we go live or drop new videos on all social media platforms. So there's really no excuses to miss any of these videos. But it's FYF Sports, man. Another great podcast episode. We will be back with more sports and news. But until then, it's FYF Sports. And we out. Really late.
Let's go. Yeah, I'm like an addict. Do I gotta have